YouTube, what's going on? It's your boy Booda back in the building for another Last Cloudia unit showcase video. You can see the oppressive man on the screen. Yes, we have Thouzer in his throne of corpses. Very hype unit, very cool kit, a lot to unpack. So I say we just get into it and show you what I've been able to do with him in multiple areas of the game. But you guys know how we have to start this video off and unlock the man's ward, the proper respect given to a unit with a showcase video. Armor equipped, physical damage taken -1%. Does not get me out of my seat. However, we will take percentages to add to the ward board. Moving back out to the unit summary, as we learned last time with Lagrange, I'm not going to jump over to Lake's units tool yet. Don't know or think that there has been too much fleshing out of Thouzer yet, so we're just going to take a look at what he offers in game. Thouzer is a soldier type. These are going to be his base stats at 4th Awaken. Remember that Awakenings 5 and 6 only give you some little stat increases, which is very negligible for the cost that it's worth. Attribute resistance neutral to fire, ice, earth, 10 resistance to thunder, 20 weak to light, and 25 resistance to dark. Ailment resistances does have +1 to poison, -1 to weak, -1 to silence, +2 or nil to curse, +1 to stun, and +1 to illness. A bit of a bummer that he is weak to silencing, since there is a bit of casting Thouzer wants to do, as we'll see with his multiple debuff spells, but you can definitely work around it. Ailments are not the end of the world by any means, and we're going to be working with 92 SC in these builds, which is his 90 plus the extra prism that is currently accessible at this point in time. Moving on to the abilities, we have his S1 Deadly Veil, frontal medium area dark combo attack, skill 2 Anger Shred, medium area long range dark combo attack, then instantly move behind the enemy to attack again. This is one of my favorite skills to use in the game currently. It just is very flashy, has him teleporting all over the screen. I do like it a lot. Skill 3 Falter Gallows, medium area dark combo attack, on final hit boost critical rate and damage cap plus 150,000. This is the skill that has a lot of people's ears perked because of that massive damage cap hit at the end, giving him that nice big old number that you see on the screen. And his special execution, powerful dark combo attack to one enemy, give enemy cut dark resistance debuff. So going to be useful whenever you're fighting bosses and have that accessible. Moving on to his traits, getting nice and long and scrolly nowadays. Trait 1, Atrocity. When only one weapon is equipped, dark damage plus 50% and damage cap plus 10,000. Keep in mind this is dark damage overall, so this is going to affect UR arc skills, the special damage, all of that niceness. Boost dark damage and dark damage cap based on number of debuffs and or status ailments on target. Damage plus 7%, damage cap plus 1,500 for each. Max 8 debuffs and 2 status ailments. When skill 3 or special activates, give a unit STR plus 50% buff. So quite nice if you have ample SCT sustain on the S3, giving him a very, very nice STR boost. Remember that anything like 35% or higher is going to be a significant stat increase. Going back to the conditional damage cap here, it's not that difficult, as we've come to find, especially with the theorizing that you might have saw in the Power Creep podcast, where Tweaks laid out all the debuffs that are accessible to us. Debuffing is much easier to do than, let's say, ailments or like Ray's health loss condition, right? So the 8 debuffs is pretty easy to achieve. Combine him with someone who can inflict status ailments. 2 status ailments is not a difficult achievement in most scenarios, so achieving this 15,000 damage cap and 70% damage boost is also very, very achievable. So love the trait 1. I think a lot of us do. Prison Gallowsman. Battle start, give imprisoned debuff to the living enemy with the highest max HP. When dealing damage to an enemy with imprisoned debuff, cut max HP an amount equal to 10% of damage dealt, up to 30% max HP. So this was very confusing, at least for a lot of people like your boy Booda in the beginning. Don't think of this as, oh, I can take a 10 million HP boss and cut it by 3 million. That's not what's going to happen, and you're not going to see this effect useful unless you have an enemy that heals back the damage after you've dealt it, because you can only take away the max HP as you deal damage. So there is no return on the max HP cutting until the enemy starts healing back. And now instead of healing up to 10 million, it can only heal up to, 6 or 7 million based on that. So a bit wonky, and it's very weird to see this in action. You're going to see health bars look like they're kind of healing. You're going to see in arena this weird like switching from blue to red health, or something's going real wonky in the health bar when I've used this guy in arena. So that's what this trait is doing. When enemy with imprisoned debuff is incapacitated, re-give buff under same conditions. When an enemy with the imprisoned debuff reaches HP 30% or less, skill 3 and special damage plus 50% and damage cap plus 20,000 to that enemy. So again, all just flat damage boosts applicable to all types of damage that this guy's inflicting. I do know that this imprisoned debuff reapplying is a bit weird. If there are multiple enemies, it will apply to the next enemy that's alive when you kill the first enemy that has the imprisoned debuff. If you then kill all of the enemies, for example in arena, let's say you kill all 4 arena enemies before one is able to revive, you will no longer be inflicting the imprisoned debuff. The imprisoned debuff is only reapplied when there is an enemy that's still alive on the field after killing the enemy currently with the imprisoned debuff. Kind of confusing to explain. Had to say it a couple times in my head before I was able to get that out, so hopefully you're able to understand, but that's the weirdness with the reapplication for imprison. And then of course this plus 20,000 for that last 30% HP, 50% damage is just a very nice cherry on top, especially when you're fighting enemies like multiplayer world bosses or any endgame world bosses that have a good amount of HP within that last 30%. Your damage spikes significantly with that cap boost. So thumbs up, love to see it. Check mark from your boy Booda. I like everything in this guy's trait, honestly. There's nothing that I hate. I think there are a couple ways that could have been changed to make it just a little more fun to play, but what I see this guy as is an encouragement for people to start getting creative and thinking of ways to debuff the enemies, which is a strategy that is going to help any player universally. The application of debuffs, casting certain debuffs to more endgame fights, can be the difference between beating it without much difficulty and then struggling really hard. Debuff application is one of the things that I think people do the least, but yet it can be the most effective in hard situations. A lot of the game can just be blasted through with pure DPS. It's only a small fraction of the game in endgame where debuffing becomes very prevalent. So that's exactly what this guy promotes, which I love. Moving on, let's get into his innate skills, the unlockables, and see how this guy's kit looks naturally. Starting with these spells that come innately in his kit, he has Execution Animum. All enemy skill damage taken, damage cap plus 2,000. So a little weird because animas are inflicted onto the enemy, but pretty self-explanatory. This is a 2,000 cap raise, but it's considered a debuff. I'm not sure if we have many debuffs that give cap raises to compare this anima to, so it's a little wonky when reading it, but it can simply be understood as a 2,000 cap raise for every unit on your team. And what's also nice is that it counts as a debuff, so it plays into Thouzer's kit as well, right? It's not just an extra buff or a charisma that's not going to activate his trait. The anima automatically activates Thouzer's trait. So technically, if you just cast the anima, Thouzer's getting 3,500 extra damage cap because you have the anima plus 1,500 from his trait 1. Giga High Blazer, Giga High Drain, Giga Shaker. Very nice that he's coming with these Giga spells. The Giga stands for infliction on all enemies, which just makes multi-enemy wave debuffing that much easier. And the fact that they are both high spells for Blazer and Drain boosts it from 20 to 35%, which is almost doubling that amount. So big debuff that he can take advantage of, which is very nice and can apply it to all enemies. Giga Shaker is subtraction of critical rate. However, as Tweaks mentioned in the podcast, we just haven't really found where this is very useful. I know in the Cap Raise podcast, they talked about it being super useful in Maze. I've yet to try that. However, I don't know, maybe it's effective there. I don't see it being super impactful. I don't see it making that big of a difference, and it's an extra castable debuff you have to continue to reapply, so that's just more time wasted in my head. But that may be another place where it's useful. In Arena, to me, this is useless. There's no time to be casting Giga Shaker when we're in this burst meta that we currently have. Giga Weak decreases all attribute resistance for all enemies, a wonderful skill to have innately. Big SC save, and I think this is only available on UR Theopolis, so very nice, and he's locked to dark essentially, so you want to have some elemental decreases accessible to him. Moving on to the passive skills with the stat ups, he has attack up max, fighting spirit 2, and critical up 3, which is the crit up that you want. Proud force, innate HP sustain, which we like. Brute Slayer, Human Slayer, and Special Boost. So 10 typings that he has 100% anti-damage for his physical attacks. Third unit ever to have this amount of Slayers built in him, which is a massive SC save. And you don't have to worry about having all of the arcs where one of these Slayers is accessible to you. Gonna help him reach those damage caps super easy. Corrosion Fang, a chance to debuff enemies during normal attacks, so physical attacks do plus 20% damage. Sounds really good on paper, however, the fact that he's single wield makes his regular attacks half as effective as if he was a dual wield unit, so you're not going to see this hardly ever, right? Relying on single attack, regular attack spamming is just a recipe for time wasting galore, so not the biggest fan of it. When you're, trying to get some Goddess Kiss procs, hopefully you can get this to pop, which will be useful, but other than that, you're not going to be taking advantage of this in any high-level strategies. Weapon Break. When attacking with a skill, chance to inflict a physical damage, minus 20% debuff to enemy, so wonderful. Physical attacks, a much more meta way to inflict debuffs, and it's going to decrease damage from the enemy dealt. Physical, that is. Auto Brave, great that he has that innately, we'll take that, so he'll always have 20% STR. It's just with that S3 and his special, you can jump up to 50% for 40 seconds, which is nice. Dark High Drive, Dark Mega Drive, wonderful damage modifiers for him to have. Dark Critical Raise, we'll definitely take that luxury skill. Goddess Kiss innately, big SC save. Has Surprise Attack innately, which I love because of the way his S2 functions. He does teleport behind the enemy and then kind of go backwards, so you are definitely going to get at least one hit with this damage boost. Favored Sword innately is a great SC save, given that 10,000 damage cap and 30% physical attack damage when only one weapon is equipped. Armor High Boost and Armor Mega Boost, 2 more incentives to run him single wield over dual wield, giving you a nice 40% to defense and physical damage taken subtracted from bosses, which will help in those high difficulty fights. Armor HP plus 2. Third reason to use an armor piece rather than dual wield, given another HP 15%. He does have ultimate boost too, and as we know, his traits do benefit all types of damage. So even though it's single target, he can deal a good amount of damage just innately with what he has when you're fighting like a single target boss. So not mad at it, and it cuts that dark resistance. Indomitable Spirit, when taking lethal damage, survive and recover HP 50% once per wave, and then you also get that 30% extra damage buff. Skill damage, that is, don't forget. The better skill compared to Determination when surviving lethal hits. Dog Eat Dog he has innately. Skill damage plus 10% against non-boss enemies. We'll definitely take it as an innate skill for 0 SC. I think it's only accessible on Melee Mare. Death God, physical attacks have a chance to deal instant death, so this is going to be very useful whenever you're fighting enemies that are physically resistant in places like Tower of Trials, because he can just simply take them out when this activates. Schadenfreude, when defeating an enemy with a debuff, recover HP 25% and SCT 5 seconds. As we know, the dude has so many ways to inflict at least one debuff to the entire enemy field, which just nets him so much on-kill benefits. SCT 5 seconds and HP 25%, those are nice numbers to receive, just by casting his anima and then killing enemies that are just going to give you SCT to kill more enemies and get more health and more SCT. It's just a very nice skill. Decapitation, when only one weapon is equipped. Physical attack damage cap plus 12,000. If unit's STR is highest of his stat spread, chance to break guard when physically attacking. So great skill. I like everything that this is built innately. I think this chance to break guard is just equal to Shockwave, which is 6% chance. A couple things that, sound good in arena: dog eat dog. None of the arena enemies are boss enemies. He has a weighted break guard as a single wield unit, doubling up on if you equip Shockwave. So he's definitely got some things that say, try me in arena. Thrall of God, battle start. When only one other ally is God type, you get this 10% to those stats. Bodily Anguish, physical attack damage plus 30% to enemies with Imprisoned debuff, and Mental Anguish when physically attacking an enemy with the Imprisoned debuff, chance to give a STR, defense, int, or M&D debuff that enemy does not have. So very, very good skills to couple along that Imprisoned gimmick. But this is I think it's the second way he can actually inflict a debuff just by using his skills. What I appreciate with a physical attacker is being able to spam skills, and that also enables the unit, right? It is a bit bothersome to me as I've used him to have to remember to apply debuffs, have my character just sit there for 2 to 3 seconds before I can actually jump into battle. It's nice that we have a way to inflict debuffs by just going into a fight with his skills, but since it's locked to the imprisoned enemy, you just can't take advantage of this effectively with multi-enemy, multi-wave content as well. So usually in your best interest to use one of his debuffs at the start of battle, which is not a big deal, but it does feel a little worse to me, as in my opinion, than just being able to go into battle, start spamming skills, and then him just enabling himself that way. So it's all about just time spent playing and how your time is spent. Overall, though, the dude's kit is so synergistic. It comes with such incredible SC saves. He definitely caught the attention of most players when we first saw his information. And I will say, having a unit where there's a bit more focus on also using his utility versus just spamming skills like we do with Shift Bayland does add an extra layer of gameplay that is refreshing, I would say. So incredible unit, I'll just tell you off the rip. What does he need? Just things that make what he already comes with better. He already has great damage modifiers. He has HP, SCT sustain, MP sustain. He's able to debuff the enemy in many ways based off what comes in his kit. So he's got what I think all he needs to function great without much extra. So we're just going to add things that boost him to better potentials in areas that he already performs well in. So more damage modifiers, more sustain, more ways to inflict debuffs if possible. That's really all you got to think about when building this guy. If you want, maybe lean more into some res lowering tactics, adding Holy Circle if you have it accessible to you might help this guy. Remember, he is locked to dark elements, so you do have to think about dark resistant enemies, but also remember he's not locked to a weapon type. So if you want to run him as a single wield machine user with Trishula, he can just ignore anyone with any dark resistances. I prefer to go the sword route because I have a lot of skills that boost his sword wielding capabilities and damage cap, etc. But he's very versatile when you're thinking about what weapon to use. I know that Zero mentioned using Pluton, the Godforge bow that we have available. This thing will just straight up ignore 20 resistance every dark attack, and the element matches his dark modifiers in order to get the damage boosts for big Goddess Kiss procs. So plenty of ways to build him. We're going to build him the Booda way. You guys are going to see the builds here momentarily. Going to take him into some situations in game, see how he performs, and make our final judgments at the end of the video. Let's start with our typical general story clear stage. Chapter 6-9, Encroaching Dead. You can see this build is titled a bit differently. It's called Slayers Galore, physical DPS. I ironically did choose to go a completely different route than you probably just heard me explain. How I prefer to run Thouzer with the sword, using things like Doppelhander, Doppelhander Boost, getting that 8k cap raise, throw it on Arc Being Eldravenov for another 6. That is a lot of damage that's just consistent and available to him. However, it requires many limited things that I don't think a lot of people watching this video are going to have. So I went a different route. I wanted to challenge myself, take Thouzer in a bit more of a free-to-play friendly direction. You can see that we are running Trishula on him in this build, along with 2 other Slayers on top of his already 10 Slayer package. Dragon and God, because I know those 2 cover a lot of the enemies you're going to see in this stage, and honestly a lot of enemies in the game as you're clearing story fall under those 12 typings that he covers. So I don't think it's a horrible idea if you want to just build Thouzer like this and then use him as your main story clear, or use this build as what you want to work up to as a new player that may be re-rolled and is starting with Thouzer as your main DPS. We're also running the arc Saint Marius for a couple different reasons. One, because it gives extended debuff time. You see, we're taking the time to cast all of his debuffs available, which extends the amount of time it takes to clear the stage. But I mean, look at this. We're shredding through this stone enemy, which if you pay attention in my other showcases, they have notoriously high defenses. It's very hard to cap on them, and the dude is just having a slaughter fest here. So here we go, soloing this final stage. Gets a bit tricky. I was worried he was going to get flinched out a lot, but luckily with his casting speed and ability to just get those off right away, it doesn't seem to be a problem. And once they are inflicted on all the enemies, he's just running a train on all of them. Now you see the defense, or you see the cap go down there, because once you kill the enemy and they lose all their debuffs, technically, you don't get all of the boosts that are innate in his kit. So just keep that in mind. But absolutely slaughtering that stage with that little janky build. Moving on to a more end game, definitely not free-to-play friendly build because I'm using some limited skills. However, it's more free-to-play friendly than I would say, going the, Doppelhander, Eldravana, Arc Being, and Doppelhander boost is going to be. So here we leaned into a crit extra attack build. I want to give a shout out to Cosmos because he showed off an Icy Guardian extra attack crit build, which of course can work extremely well. We're taking Thouzer in to fight Leva here, who is very, very weak to Dark and is one of the first entry level end game fights that I would say is a bit high difficulty for new players, but Thouzer can absolutely decimate this stage. The team comp running is very important. Thouzer thrives off a proper team that helps him debuff the enemy. As you can see, I mean, look at the health bar. There's just debuff after debuff after debuff. I believe we have more than 8 debuffs on him, as well as the poison ailment from Shift Goroth there. Shift Goroth's special being so insanely effective in enabling a lot of things going on in this kit. Just works for a fantastic party member to run with Thouzer. Again, of course, very collab limited, but is a debuff monster. And then we have Sarah there just for the heals when we face those ultimates that Leva shoots out. But as you saw, with the debuffs, with the lowering of Blazer, minus 35% strength, we're tanking things extremely well. Without a proper tank, without like Spirit Maiden Tyria and her OP defensive debuffing for the team, we are just mowing down this level boss with almost no difficulty. And you can see those big 60,000 crits. Keep in mind, we're getting 25% of that as neutral extra attack hits with Heaven's Bow Star-Lord, right? Bringing Icy Guardian in here wouldn't work super well because of how much Leva resists ice. So going that Star-Lord route not only gives an extra 10% because we're using a bow for crit rate, but also gives a neutral pursuit, which won't be affected by anything. So here's the last special, which is extremely buffed. Leva gets a lot of buffs at the end there, but we are able to tank it with Thouzer and Sarah, which allows us to get this amazing special damage off to finish the job. I forget how many hits exactly it is. It's like 55, somewhere in that range, but with all of those boosts that he gets at the last 30% health, that special absolutely dominates. So Very nice showing of Thouser's ability there. And finally moving into Arena. After I experimented with the crit extra attack build, I wanted to take him into Arena because his gimmick of lowering health, lowering max HP in Arena, you know that there are a ton of healing. There's a ton of healing going on. There are a lot of tanky tanks. The damage is mitigated, right? So you have a lot of HP to chew through usually. And by no means is Thouzer the star in these battles you're gonna see here. The crown's definitely gonna go to Sheeta, but in Arena, I think it's very difficult to give all of the credit to one unit. Arena is much more about, at least when you start getting into the top 100, it's much more about your team composition and how each party member plays a certain role. So this team specifically is meant to hunt defense stall teams, right? You have Gen there to just immediately debuff a lot of the enemies off rip. You have Legrain there in order to pop his Anima, which gives minus 20 Dark Res along with Thunder Res. You have Sheeta there, whose Black Hole absolutely massacres and chews through the defenses of these physical tanky teams. And then you have Thouzer there, who's playing this role. Right, we have so much crit lowering, resistance lowering that, you know, I was hoping he would do a little more damage than I think he was able to honestly do. But what he is also doing is cutting the max HP of every enemy he's hitting, which just allows Sheeta's magic damage to get them down to 0 health that much quicker. He also does have his double chance of guard breaking with Shockwave along with Decapitation. And he just synergizes well with the ability to black hole enemies into the center, keep them Thunder Gauge stun locked, because we are running Thunderstone Luster on Gen here, which adds a lot of stunning to enemies that aren't stun resistant. And when you combine all 4 of those things, you can see it's just a very beautiful auto battle experience. It's not the fastest in the world. There are definitely plenty, I'd say, better Arena team comps, but it's very pleasing to watch everything just come together. And I do like Thouzer's S2 a lot because it has that initial throw of his blade, which gives him long range damage before he closes the gap, so it can open up opportunities for him to sneak out of tricky situations. But I was not super uber impressed with his presence in Arena in a couple of other different team builds that I tried. Now don't get it twisted, this team comp would get absolutely obliterated by any other team with some form of offense dealing. If you can get lucky, like we got away with 2BB in there in that first team, but if you take this in to fight any team that's got a Shift Balin, Shift Roland that's built for offense, Mikasa, Roy, Shift Rimuru, you're gonna get absolutely obliterated. Like I said, this team comp is very tailored to take on the teams that you're seeing. Super uber tanky that usually stall out most offense-oriented teams. And it's the combination of these 4 units that I think just synergizes very well, works very well together, right? You have all the debuffing to lower defenses, to just incapacitate these annoying tanks that much easier to get damage off. So you see Clevers here has a nice stally Granados, so props on the dude's Granados, but eventually we're able to get the job done. And I don't know, maybe some of you guys can tell me if you found a very effective way to use him in Arena, but him being close range, not being long range, it just hinders him so much. But happy with this team comp nonetheless. And with that, we come to the conclusion of the Thouzer showcase video. You guys saw that he's just so versatile because of the utility coupled with his damage. Now, there are so many different ways to build him that I don't think there was any way to cover all of them in a reasonable amount of time for this video, but those are just a few ways that I really enjoy playing Thouzer. If you want to learn other ways to utilize him, make sure to join the Discord, right? Links in the description and pinned comment below. Because of his debuffing utility along with that damage, you can really scale him to lean into either one and have a really nice mix of both. I think team building is also a huge topic of discussion for him, since he can benefit so much from certain party members and also enable the rest of the team the way that he does. He's just such a versatile and fun character that I haven't really experienced in a while. So Thouzer, a very, very obvious little money sink before an expected collab that we're going to see in the next week. So make sure to drop a comment below on your thoughts about Thouzer, different ways you use him that maybe I didn't take advantage of in this video, and then of course would love to see you in Discord, over on Twitter, and Twitch is where we're doing a bunch of live streams. Guys, some exciting news. Your boy did get another HelloFresh sponsorship. I'm going to be doing another Maze of Tartarus / HelloFresh sponsored live stream. You're not going to want to miss it. Got a little Booda gang HelloFresh army forming, and I'd love to keep adding to it. You guys killed it on the last one, so thank you so much. Hopefully we can spread the gospel and get some more of you to sign up and experience the convenient, healthy, delicious experience of HelloFresh. Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on those bell notifications so you don't let the algorithm tell you when to watch my video. And with all that being said, y'all know what we say. Work hard, play harder. See you in the next one.